This is Esther Lin, photographer for MMAfighting.com, and I'd like to share a few of my favorite moments from UFC 214 with you. The week begins in downtown Los Angeles, and the small crowd here is prickly. In that nightclub space, each heckling scent at the current champ, Daniel Cormier, in favor of the newly unleashed Jon Jones seemed awfully close and clear. 2 other title fights were also on the dais, but you really wouldn't know it. This press conference is really just for Daniel Cormier and Jon Jones. Barbs fly back and forth, with Cormier grabbing the best singer of the day about not having actually been a crackhead, which feels like the appropriate transition to Jon Jones taking off his shirt at, again, the press conference, to walk up on the suited champion. Thursday started with Media Day, where a large chunk of this stellar card is available for interviews. There's only one question Ariel Helwani wants to ask Robbie Lawler. Is he in fact a closet John Cena fan? I love that Robbie Lawler just laughs, shakes his head, and chuckles under his breath, fucking Mo. Later, we're waiting by the cage. Lots of fans have now filled the UFC gym, wondering when the fighters will show up. When I hear the crowd shrieking, I turn around, and Johnny Bones Jones is making his way through a chorus of cheers. Jon Jones says he wants Saturday night to be the first time that the public sees him move, so no workout. Instead, he introduced his coaches and then made a lap, signing autographs and posing for photos. Tanya Evinger gives the UFC fans a first live glimpse at her skills, though she's been tearing it up for years, most notably as the Invicta FC Bantamweight champion. It's long overdue, but I'm glad Evinger is finally here. Chris Cyborg receives a hero's welcome as she enters the octagon. With instruments in tow and the fans clapping along rhythmically, Cyborg gives a capoeira demonstration, finally vying for the title that was essentially carved for her. Chris Cyborg was beaming, warm with happiness. Welterweight champ Tyron Woodley showed off some quick and crisp boxing before the light heavyweight champion Daniel Cormier follows with an extended workout, where he promises to sign autographs for every single person while hecklers egg him on. Cormier smiles and works his way around the room along the stanchions. The next morning, the first to hit the scale at official weigh-ins at 9 a.m. sharp is DC, flexing as they look at the readout, keeping his hands far above that towel. 205 pounds on the dot. A few fighters later, a buoyant Jon Jones struts onto stage, selfies with the gathered media in this sweltering hotel room, and sends a scale with a smirk. 204.5, and the cheeky Jon Jones celebrates, making weight with a gamut of poses. Don't judge Robbie Lawler's excitement going into his fight against Donald Cerrone by his facial expression, even if Lawler has no particular passion for pageantry. Every face-off is exciting because every matchup is so intriguing. The high-level skill sets going to battle are thrilling to consider. An emotional Jon Jones emerges. Everyone leaps to their feet. Through the arms of family and friends who were seated in front of us, now all standing in ovation for their return, Jones basked in the lights and adoration as if he was seeing the sun for the first time in years. Then Daniel Cormier strode onto stage with determination, driving forward, eyes locked, as he removed his shirt to step on the scale for this fake weigh-in, and rather than pretend, he simply stared at the challenger, here his greatest foe, from what is essentially now a decorative scale-shaped platform. The noise from the crowd turned into an echo in my mind as I studied both men's faces for the smallest glint of what waited for us tomorrow. It's fight night, and UFC 214 is fantastically stacked. So stacked that it would take an hour to go over all of the action, so you'll have to settle for knowing that it was quite good. The blue corner in our first title fight of the night is Tonya Evinger, who should have been in the UFC long ago, as so many women she'd vanquished over the years were already among its ranks. And it seems for some the only way into the UFC is a last-second showdown through a wood chipper. Good thing Tonya Evinger is a tough bitch. Cyborg looks better than ever though, and Evinger runs through her arsenal, landing a few takedowns and punches. Yet the inevitability of Cyborg's dominance begins to sink in. In the end, Cyborg was incredibly patient and measured, made no mistakes against the crafty bantamweight. When the referee stops the fight, Evinger sits on the mat, certainly more disappointed than physically hurt, as she'd never been stopped by strikes in all 11 years of her professional career. The arena erupts in praise. Cyborg climbs the cage to raise her arms as high as she can. The title that always seemed made for her was now firmly around her waist. I can't believe there's still 2 more title fights to go. Woodley is icy. Shutting down Maia's takedown attempts in what, after an all-offense fight in Cyborg versus Evinger, was a careful dissection, solving a long-running, seemingly unstoppable problem of Damian Maia's grappling. From the get-go, Woodley's striking is faster, sharper. Maia's eye swells. Going into the later rounds, Damian Maia has exhausted his takedown techniques but still cycles through them in a loop, hoping just once something will catch. But it is not to be. Woodley's control of the fight is reminiscent of other very dominant welterweights who have preceded him. It is by no means a fun fight, but it is an utterly dominant win. Sometimes our base enjoyment of a slobber knocker gets in the way of appreciating both fighters, and seeing that Woodley's approach to Maia was one of full respect for Maia's weapons and dangerous nature. Counter to Damian Maia's seemingly innocuous image outside of competition is the very real threat of submission that was made to look so ineffective we decided to forget all of the positive superlatives we'd used to praise Maia before the bout and deemed him overrated, despite the matchup being quite tough for the Brazilian, even on paper. A loud grumble shakes the Honda Center. The crowd here in Anaheim is ready for the return of Jon Jones, and it is ready for the main event. They made this fight 5 times, yet have only truly battled once. Now, after a tumultuous few years, 2 fighters are finally settling who is the best. Jon Jones has only been beaten by himself, Cormier only by Jon Jones. Their history was already so tangled, their legacies entwined as 2 of the best ever to do this. Jones kneels in prayer at the door before cartwheeling over the canvas. DC runs to the cage from the tunnel, speeding to his rival. Both fighters perform their usual rituals, and now, this is the moment I know it's real. And it's actually happening. It felt like taunting fate each time before that I had allowed myself to be excited for this. And Daniel Cormier runs into battle, head down, eyes narrowed, determined to punctuate this story that's been building for too long. What we see in those 25 minutes is compounded with their drama, but also, it's not. The combat itself is the saga, the story too. This fight is the story of Jon Jones's body shots versus hard headshots from a well-tuned and ready Daniel Cormier. A disgraced champion returning, gunning straight for his lost crown against this good king. Doesn't matter his character, because this throne is his. And what an intense campaign each man wages. Daniel Cormier grinds through, eating kicks and knees to the body as he leaps and lands. After 2 rounds, Jon Jones tunes into that expertly crafted way that Jon Jones finds his way through a fight, trying each bit of pressure, like picking a lock, until the right combination of pins clicks. This kick had flashed a few times in the rounds prior, but now it lands perfectly. It is all but done, but Cormier valiantly keeps moving, trying to keep his feet underneath, and it is when Jones is waved off. I inhaled hard, realizing I'd been holding my breath for quite some time. It's over. 2.5 years since their first meeting, 2.5 years of this war in and out of the arena, Jon Jones is once again the UFC light heavyweight champion. After so long, this fight having produced so many face-offs over the years and been thwarted so many times, it was only fitting that the fight itself was gritty, hard. But in the end, somehow the world slows down when Jon Jones is fighting, because that is the thing he is good at, great at, innate at. How dismaying it must be to lose your fight, to be knocked out and not know what you are waking from. What alien-sounding words out of your worst nightmares coming from a cadre of mostly strangers. It's chaos in the cage. It's hard to get a clean shot of the new champion receiving his belt. He falls to the mat. There's some time, celebrating, shaking of hands, promos dropped as Jon Jones challenges Brock Lesnar and exits. There in the darkened arena, standing very upright and still so very stunned, Cormier didn't move, and his corner cut off his hand wraps. I can't even pretend to know what that must feel like. Perhaps more devastating because he was doing so well. Conversely, I don't know what it is to win a fight. That joy of joys, relief and collective exaltation. I don't know how high that really feels. The physical stakes are so great already without accounting for the emotional stakes. So it is unsurprising that Tonya Evinger feels she's weak for not having at least lasted 5 rounds. Hopefully in moving back down to bantamweight, she'll return with force. Woodley addresses yet another performance that ends in critique from the promoter. There's a better story to tell, but it's not being told. And Jon Jones is back. We know this because after that lovely post-fight speech here at the press conference in his Sunday best, Jones is telling us he can't make any promises this time. Because, after all, he's still a wild motherfucker. And isn't that the very thing that makes him a thrill to watch? This is Esther Lynn for MMAfighting.com. Thank you for watching.